Hi everyone, I've got a challenge for you. Today is the Writing Plan Shape Challenge. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can use shapes to try to give sort of a structure for our planning and to help visualize what we're supposed to do when we're writing particular writing tasks. So today we're going to look at the very, well, shall I say, exciting essay. We're going to look at stories, and we're going to look at an email. Let's start off with a pretty simple idea, which is when we read a novel, what kind of action do we see happening? We see sort of building action, rising action, and then it reaches a peak, then it drops again, and then it rises again as we go through each chapter. So you see this action going on. Because in the near future we don't really foresee our students writing novels, let's look at some other shapes and look at how they can help students plan their writing. Here are the shapes that I propose using. Two of them are for stories, and I bet you can guess which they are. Then we've got the email, which is much more serious, shall we say, and I bet you can guess the shape. And finally, we've got the essay, which is very logical, but structured very carefully. So have you guessed it yet? What's the four-legged octopus? What's the square? What are those little curlicues and these arrows about? First of all, the arrows are for a story because a story is very dynamic and it can go in a lot of different directions. So using a line with an arrow is just a great way of depicting what could possibly happen. The square is great because emails are very square. There's not a lot of variation in structure. And an essay. Well, I always plan an essay in a circle because it allows me to put the ideas that I brainstorm in any order I want to. I can simply take the four legs of the octopus and number them, and so I'm not stuck in a linear format. For the stories, I'm just going to show you two possibilities. One is a story with an end that's expressed at the beginning, and the other one is a story that includes a flashback. The story with the end expressed at the beginning is usually a phrase that's in the past perfect, like I had never been so surprised in all my life. And basically, you're going to end up telling what kind of person you are, explaining some other moments of your life, and then you're going to finally get to the big part, which is the big surprise. So that's why I have it shown in a circle. Not that it's necessarily a circle, but basically the beginning is the surprise, and then you've got to work your way up to the surprise at the end. The story with a flashback has a curlicue because basically what you do is you build the action, you're telling what's going on, and then you remember something. And then I remembered what happened on that day. And that's where you're going back in time, and that's the curl. Then you end up rejoining the present and going on in the future. And now for the essay with the four tentacles. Okay, so a typical essay that I'm aiming for is a 5-paragraph essay, which has 3 main points. Now you say there's 4 tentacles, so why 3 points? Well, when we brainstorm, I like to have the 4 because inevitably 2 of those are going to actually go together. So thus, you reduce the number of points down to 3. If they don't join together, you might just say, well, I'm going to take my best 3. Looking at the topic as to whether children should be required to learn a second language in school, let's start brainstorming. And the first point that I could think of is that children will be better aware of their own culture, so they get to know themselves better. Secondly, they can develop thinking skills. Of course, because while they're learning languages, they have to think in a different way. They will be developing new mechanisms of thinking. But also, there's the other point that the topics that we cover in many of our classes are also very stimulating and generate a lot of discussion and make students think hard. Next, of course, we always think of jobs when we think of foreign languages because they open up some doors. And finally, in the future, certainly this will allow for cultural exchanges and some sort of traveling opportunities. Now in the end, to get down to my 3 main points, I might put the 2 cultural points together, that we are better aware of our own culture at the same time as we learn about other people's culture and we travel. Now we've got the 3 points, all we have to do is order them, so number them 1, 2, 3, So once we think about the right order, an order that we can argue, then we just need to put them into 3 paragraphs. And of course have before the first paragraph an introduction that introduces the topic. And after what's now the 4th paragraph, the 3rd point, we write the conclusion to sum it up and to finish off discussion. Then we have our 5-paragraph essay. Onto the email square. And I said an email is very square because there's not a lot of variation in structure. Emails always start off with a greeting. We usually say dear or hi. Then we go on to the upper right-hand corner. We say the reason why we're writing to give a context. Then we go on and give our main points. That's just what we want to talk about. Now, what students will often forget is the lower left-hand corner, which is the action close. What do you actually want the person to do? Do you want them to write back to you? Do you want them to give you extra information? And so on. Usually what we've talked about in the main points will associate with our action close. And now we go back to the upper left-hand corner again, because I put those two together, the greeting and the closing together, because they're both very formulaic. So whereas the greeting is, dear or hi, in the end we might have regards, kind regards, best wishes, or bye. So it kind of comes around full square. We'd love to hear your ideas on this writing plan shape challenge. Also to hear about your successes or questions you might have. And also if you're interested in more detailed discussion on any of these shapes. So there you have it. The writing plan shape challenge. Get out your shapes, draw your shapes on the board, and have your students try to write in those shapes. Have fun with that, and looking forward to seeing you in the teacher's room. Bye.